look at that. We put an entirely new seam on the shirt and it's gonna fit so much better. Now, we already tried it on. We like the fit. We are happy with it. If we are not happy with the fit, that's why they make this guy. This is a seam ripper. It gets its own video. We're not gonna go into that right now, so we don't need it. Now, what we need to do is we need to cut all this extra fabric off. So, first things first, what do? Do we just grab a pair of scissors and just start hacking away, just start cutting? No, don't do that, and here's why. One, these scissors right here, don't use scissors like this. I use these scissors for, cutting tape when I'm wrapping Christmas gifts, and as you can see, there's still a little bit of tape on there, and we'll get rid of that. Now, yes, they make fabric scissors. You don't necessarily need to use fabric scissors over paper scissors. You just want to make sure that whatever scissors you do use, you just use them for this. Don't be like me. Don't just go, oh, I need a pair of scissors. All right, I'm good. Okay, sweet, cool. I got these. These are actual dedicated fabric scissors. And the biggest difference between the two of these scissors is that it's gonna sit flat because it just sits completely flat. It's straight like that. These ones, they got this bump down here. So if you try and cut something, it just no, you're at the mercy of just whatever it is you're cutting on. It's pivoting. You don't want your scissors to pivot. So let's get rid of these. We don't need these. Now, we've got the proper scissors. We are gonna start cutting in a second, but how much do we cut off? Do we just start hacking away? No, we don't do that either, and here's why. We need to make sure that we know exactly how much we are cutting off. This stitch right here is our new stitch. This is the edge of our garment, and all that space in between there, that is what's called the seam allowance. And the seam allowance is important because if you cut off too much fabric on this thing, you ain't gonna have any room to actually make a zigzag stitch. And if you leave too much fabric on there, it's just gonna look stupid. Trust me, I've done that. You're gonna be walking around in public and you're gonna be like, what's that rubbing on my side right now? Oh, it's the fact that I left too much of a seam allowance. So we gotta measure it. And you can measure it in one of two ways. You can actually use what is called a seam allowance gauge. You can use this if you have one. If you don't have one, well, that's okay too. You can just use your regular measuring tape. Now, our seam allowance as it is right now is exactly 1 inch. And for a proper seam allowance, you want to have it anywhere from, let's say, 1/2 of an inch, maybe down to 1/4 of an inch, somewhere around there. So now we are at 1/2 of an inch. So we want to cut all this extra fabric up right up there. And in order to do that, we got to mark it. So I'm going to get fabric marker and I'm going to mark it right there, just like that. Well, that guy right there. And then I'm going to go down here. We're gonna mark this side too. I know. If you don't have a fabric marker, that's okay. You can work around it. You can throw some pins in there. And now we can actually properly cut it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Remember, this is it. There's no going back after you start cutting. Once you cut that extra fabric off, you better make sure you're happy, because if you ain't happy, you ain't gonna have a good time. You can work around it a little bit as far as a seam allowance goes if you're still not happy with the fit afterwards, but yo, make sure this is like the last step that you take, okay? All right, so this is what we got. And a big reason why the right scissors are important is because, well, if you use the wrong scissors, it's gonna end up kind of looking a little janky, just a little janky. Like it's gonna be wavy and uneven and your seam allowance isn't gonna be straight. And yo, you are gonna have a bad time. Now it's ready for a zigzag stitch if we wanna put one on there, which we do so that it doesn't, get all tattered and frayed in the washing machine. Somebody asked me, hey SD, can I use pinking shears for this step? No, you can't use pinking, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you can use pinking shears if you want to. The reason why I don't use pinking shears personally is because I don't wanna pay for pinking shears. That's really what it comes down to. I know that I will probably never use pinking shears. I'm cool with the way that I do it. I just put a zigzag stitch right down here. Makes me happy, makes a lot of people happy. It's gonna make you happy. If you wanna use pinking shears, then yeah, you can do that if you want to. You'll have a good time. And that's all I got for you. SD out, deuces!